Jeremy Hunt using the budget tomorrow to cut national insurance by a further 2 percentage points for 27 million workers in a move worth 450 quid on average. Natasha Clark is LBC's political editor, reading the room ahead of the budget where this looks pretty set to happen, doesn't it, Natasha, that this national insurance cut is on?
Yes, it does, Tom. Good evening. And yes, trying to read the room, trying to read Westminster. And just as I came outside to talk to you, what did I see? A rainbow going above Westminster. And is Jeremy Hunt, is there a metaphor here? Is Jeremy Hunt going to hope to find his pot of gold at the end of the rainbow with these magical tax cuts that he's going to announce?
Oh, Natasha, it's a great
tomorrow?
effort. It's a great effort.
Sorry, I didn't have too much time to think about it. And also the rainbow has now disappeared, so I don't know what that means for the omen. It probably means it's never going to happen. Or is this just some sort of cheeky leprechaun that's actually, it's all just a trick and we're all never going to buy it? Because let's face it, Jeremy Hunt is announcing these tax cuts tomorrow, we're told, and a fuel duty freeze is also on the horizon on the back of a really dire economic picture. So he's going to be making the argument that he is the Chancellor and the Prime Minister is going to be making these decisions for the long term. But really, are any of us going to feel better off when we've had a couple of years of inflation rising, prices rising, interest rates? Is it going to be enough to get people to vote Conservative in an upcoming election is the question that everybody is going to be asking. And with the polls, with the Conservatives polling at just 20%, the answer at the moment seems to be no. I am told, however, that the Chancellor is expected to have quite a long statement in the House of Commons tomorrow, which has got me scratching my head, because if it's going to be a long statement, you'd expect there to be a lot in it. But what we do know is what we've been talking about for weeks, Tom, is that the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, have repeatedly been telling Jeremy Hunt that he hasn't got enough money. So he's going to have to be announcing some tax rises to pay for some of these things like the national insurance cut and that freeze of fuel duty that we're expecting to come tomorrow.
And the tax rises may well be both raising of funds to pay for some of that, but also politically quite difficult for Labour, and actually in some cases certainly the mooted cut to the non-dom tax status, something that the Conservatives have never thought about doing for 14 years.
Exactly, and it's something that Jeremy Hunt himself described as a bad idea. I think he maybe even said it was a dangerous idea. But it will leave Labour in a bind, especially if they do announce that tomorrow, because it will mean that Labour have got to find a few £billions to replace all of the money that they say that they want to spend that extra money on in the election. It will leave them looking on the back foot. Now, Labour figures over the past few days have said, well, it just shows that the Conservative Party is stealing all of Labour's really good ideas. But I think it will leave them now scratching around. And there will obviously be questions for Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, tomorrow. Well, Jeremy Hunt has just announced a very big tax cut for workers. Are you going to keep it or are you going to scrap it? She's previously said that she would keep any sort of tax cuts that would affect workers in this way. But this could be the last budget before the election, especially if indeed we do have one in the next sort of few months or so, which is speculation is slightly rising here in Westminster that they could be looking at such a thing. If that's the case, this is the Chancellor and the Prime Minister's last chance to go to the public with some very election-friendly policies, some tax cuts, and some really offering them some optimism, some hope for the future, despite a really, really dreary economic situation.
Natasha, appreciate it. Thank you. You go stand near that rainbow. Natasha Clark, LBC's political editor.